my 65th birthday, I got a card from her. Happy birthday, Sal. Hope you have a great day. Glad I've got a sister. And that, to me, was one of the most significant things ever said.
That's Sally Conning. She spent much of her life fighting herself. On her 65th birthday, she made the decision to stop fighting and to let her hidden side be seen. The birthday card Sally just read out was from her sister Manika. The card boosted Sally's confidence in being seen, and it led to conversations that cemented the sibling bond that Sally and Manika still share today. Hello, my name is Catherine Barrett. There's a Rainbow in My Family is a podcast exploring the constructive ways families adapt when an older family member comes out or transitions.
What is family? Family, to me, is people that are in your life constantly, who are showing love to you through thick and thin, even when you're real cranky, that they'll still support you and show love to you. The people around you who really make you feel comfortable to be with.
That's beautiful, Sal. And you mentioned your sister. Can you tell us about your sister and why she's family for you?
Oh, my little sister, Manika. Beautiful girl. We've had our ups and downs over the years, I guess, but we've always rallied together when things had to be done. And I suppose now that I've totally out to everybody that Sis is there in a supporting role for me. My 65th birthday, I got a card from her. Happy birthday, Sal. Hope you have a great day. Glad I've got a sister. And that, to me, was one of the most significant things ever said.
And why was that significant, Sal?
Total recognition of who I am, I guess. You know, people say that they show support, they show care, they show that, but when somebody actually says something like that to you, it's totally there, significance. It's the hear, feel, see of close friends, close family.
And so was that, just to explore that a little bit, so that was your sister recognising your gender?
I don't know if I used the word gender. I would say my sister recognising me for who I am would be a better way to put it, Catherine, to be honest with you.
And thinking about people who might be listening to this podcast who might not understand why your sister sending you a card to say, I'm happy I have a sister, why that, like, people might not understand the significance of that. How could you describe to people how important it was?
To explain it, I identify myself as female with a transgender history. So there was a lot of history of me in the early days of not knowing where I was, fighting with myself, struggling with myself, to the point where I finally came out, and Sis was one of the first persons I actually spoke to and said, well, you know, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be me. No more hiding, no more fighting. And I'm just going to be Sally. And cool, great, go for it, was sort of the way I read it. And to get that card on the 65th birthday, which is now 5 years ago, it was just the absolute, you've done the right thing, Sal, and I'm glad for you.
Did Manika's response help to affirm the decision you'd made?
To a good extent, yes. I'd hid in my own town for too long, then I processed myself to the point where I was living a dual life for a while in my hometown. Then I got to the point where I was only going to work as the other side of me, the other part of the dual personality, not personality, the dual person. And when I'd made that conscious decision that I was going to live the rest of my life as myself, and I call myself Sally, that she just, cool, tick, you've done it. Good for you. And I'm glad I got a sister. So we've done a lot of stuff together and it's been great. We've had our ups and downs. I've said that before. We've had our ups and downs and our fights and everything else that family does. Years ago, she said to me that I should transition to the word I don't like using, but it simplifies things. And I've done that. So, and there's a kindness there that she's opened up to me and said, yep, you're you. Well done, you. And here we are. Sis, I've said to me a few times, you're doing what you're doing so that young people don't have to go through what you went through. And I had no support. I think the support's there. And as an acknowledged elder, I just think I'm doing what I should be doing. And I feel happy doing what I'm doing.
What does kindness in families mean for people who are trans or gender diverse, do you think?
An open front door, open hands, open arms, open to listening to their story, open to accepting them, just having that little bit of kindness, little bit of empathy for them, not towards them, for them, celebrating them, going back to the Riddle scale of homophobia, then when acceptance is just passable, but we should be celebrating people, celebrating the life of the person. And I think that's showing the kindness. Let's go out and celebrate. Let's go out and have fun together. That's celebrating each other. And I think that's the important part of kindness. We've got to be able to do that.
So what do you think it would mean for people, for trans and gender diverse people in particular, if they receive that kindness in their family?
A better life. A better life. Because if you're not supported and you're thrown out of your home, you can end up in all the mire and quagmire of life, where the homelessness and all the other stuff. So just that kindness, being there, supporting them, it enriches their own life, it enriches the life of the trans, non-binary person. It shows acceptance for them. It shows the celebration of them.
Sal, I'm really interested. You said then that kindness in families where there are trans and gender diverse people enriches the family. What do you mean by that?
If they are accepted and that kindness is thrown around the room and around the house, around wherever they may be at the time, everyone's in a better frame of mind, everybody's happier. It's purely down to that kindness.
I think what I'm getting from this conversation is that if families open up their hearts and practice those acts of kindness that are really valuing family members for who they are, it can transform the lives of the trans or gender diverse family member, but also to make the family a stronger unit.
It's a two-way street. You've got to show the love and the respect and the kindness in both directions. If people are copying out on a transgender diverse non-binary person, they're not going to feel it, so they're not going to respond back. But if there's kindness one way, there's kindness the other way. There's love one way, there's love the other way. And I think we all grow from that and we all become better.
Sal, if you imagine that there might be a family listening to this podcast and the penny drops for them for the first time that having a trans or gender diverse person in their family is not a point of shame. Trans and gender diverse people are valuable, worthy human beings, worthy of love, worthy of respect, and worthy of respect in their families. If there's a family who is listening to this podcast and hearing about kindness in families and they have a trans or gender diverse family member, what's your message to them?
Just do it. And I remember a project I was a part of a few years back now, and I ended up on a postcard with a friend, and the message on that was, we're people first. So once you get past the people first bit and you realise that there's a transgender, non-binary, gender diverse, whatever person, grab them, hug them, tell them you love them, respect them. Their views mightn't always be your views, but you learn together and you're on a better road.
What if the family member who's listening to that message is also listening, perhaps they've opened the paper or they've turned on the telly or they're listening to the news and hearing some of our parliamentarians, even in federal parliament, saying things that are transphobic, and they're taking on a message that somehow trans or gender diversity is something that is of lesser value, something then that they feel ashamed of in their family. What do you say to people who are hearing those transphobic voices, particularly from the leaders in our community?
Put your finger in your ear, shake your head and shake your fist at them because they are so wrong. We are people first. We need to be seen. We need to be happy. And if you're listening to their rubbish, how can you be happy?
Sal, what about if the family is listening and they have had a parent? So if it's like a middle or mature age adult and they've had a parent who has transitioned in their 60s or 70s or 80s, what would your message be for them?
They've got to look up to the parent and say, you've supported us for so long. Maybe it's our turn to support you in your happiness. We don't know what you've gone through over the years to get to where you are now. You're celebrating your life. And I think even the older kids in their 40s and that should be looking up to the parents saying, wow, you've supported us. It's our turn to support you in what you want to do.
That sounds to me like a very powerful act of kindness in a family, Sal.
Yeah. I don't know if it happens too often, but that's where it should be. It just made me think of another word, gender erasure, because younger people don't look at the older people and say, well, you've always been this person, but now you're this person. I'm not going to accept that new person. And that's not kindness. Kindness is respecting and celebrating with them that, hey, you're finally who you really want to be, or who you really should be, is more to the point.
Sal, reflecting on the kindness from your sister, Manika, is there a message that you want to send to her?
Simple. Love you, sis.
There's a rainbow in my family. Well, actually, there's more than one.
That's Manika Conning, Sally's sister. We asked Manika to tell us what family means to her.
Family, okay. Family means, accepting difference, I think, like respecting that you're an individual within a group that you've been brought up with and that you'll share your life with. And it goes better if there's give and take and communication about differences if there is difference, and being able to even shelve that sometimes for the sake of more harmony maybe. I tried to escape my family for many years, and I think that coming back into family has brought some sense of, as I've gotten older, a sense of, we share history. And isn't that fantastic? Because there's no one else outside of your family that knows what happened in your family.
So, Manika, that's really interesting that you're saying family, or your perspective on family, has changed as you've got older.
Yeah, it has.
Because of history, because you've got that history.
Because, well, I think several things is that I think I was quite staunch on one hand and projected that onto the family. I don't think I did enough give and take, actually. I'm thinking there of my mother, and that as I changed, the relationship changed, and I got actually more of what I had wanted when I was younger, which is like just a sense of that I'm accepted and that I'm loved. And definitely with Sally, to reignite a true friendship as opposed to a sort of pretense family is what's been awesome. Who's Sally? Oh, sorry. Sally's my sister. And she's 2 years older than me, and she is someone that I've always batted for with my mother. And when I mean bat, I mean I've tried to get my mum, or she's dead now, but to negotiate, an acceptance that for her generation was really difficult because Sally's trans, and from our early 20s or even before then, it was like I just had this sense that our family would have worked better if we could have been able to accept her for who she was, and that her life would have been different because of that as well. And my parents were unable to do that, and I was on one level too, because I had other issues happening from the family of secrecy and all the rest of it. And so when I went to New Zealand for 20 years, and when I came back, it's like, okay, we need to be honest about what's going on here. And so we began within 2 days of coming back to Australia, she rang and said, do you want to meet my friends? And I said, of course. And so she picked me up on the Friday, and we went to DT's, which was the watering hole for a lot of trans people back about 10 years ago now. And it was just, there was this thing of me being introduced as this is my real sister, which is ironic because she's now my sister and she didn't used to be my sister. So being introduced as my real sister when she obviously had other friends in the trans community that were sisters, really made me feel, I don't know, it was just a lovely feeling. And she was so much more open and different and relaxed, and it was like the best thing that had ever happened, which is what I had wanted her to be able to take and be 30 years prior, when we had a big talk about us and our childhood.
When you say you went into bat for Sal, what does that mean?
That means trying to, I guess, shift my mother's idea about what a family was, because for her, I think it carried a lot of shame. I think there was a lot of shame that her children, and I was one as well, so there was the two of us, that neither of us met her expectations. And so we weren't ever accepted for who we were.
Can I ask you, Manika, because one of the things I get from listening to you talk about family is what a generous spirit you have. And is that something, I wonder if that's something that helps make families work when people do their own work? Is that something you've done, your own work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Other work that I've done on myself was to trust a therapist enough to tell them my story, because I had got subliminal, really. No, they weren't direct messages, but don't talk about this. Don't talk about it because you'll shame the family, you'll shame us, etc., etc. And so I was in another country and I could talk about it, and that took many years to dig down, and to understand what was sort of happening from a bigger picture, you could say.
What was that you felt ashamed of or couldn't say?
Well, it was without being told not to talk about it. When you see your family react in a certain way, you get the message not to talk about what's happening in your family.
So you got a message that it wasn't okay to talk about anything other than perfect family?
Yes.
And so you felt you couldn't talk about having a sibling
Trouble. Yeah, having
trouble
in the family. Yeah, the secrecy. It twisted me inside. It, people will know who have been, in similar situations through their religious upbringing or through sexual abuse is another classic, through being LGBTI and presenting as one thing but being something else, that there is it goes deep into your soul, really, that you are not loved for who you are. You're only loved if you be a particular thing. Sally is my family, and because we're older, it's like I never thought that I would have that closeness with her, or to be able to laugh about our childhood together with her. Like this, the bonding of that is, I can't even express how wonderful that is to have.
Manika, Sal talks about a real turning point in her life, I think on her 65th birthday, when you sent her a birthday card. Do you remember that birthday card?
I don't remember what the actual front of the card was, but I do remember distinctly writing, "I love having a sister." It's great. Yeah.
And tell me why you wrote that.
Because it's true. I love it. She is so much happier. Like, we can have a relationship and laugh, and we can share music that we both like or not like, or, like she would pop into Mum's house before we had to sell it and move on. And, we would sit and watch the same programs, although she didn't like Home and Away, but I tried to convince her it was a good show at the time. Never watched it again since I've come down here. But yeah, so we've, I think it was like finding out who she is. It was like both of us finding out who we are. And I much prefer having a sister. Love having a sister. You've got to have the trailblazers, and that Sal was part of that trailblazing, because being taken to a psychiatrist and sat in front of where he says, "I'll cure your son," and Sal didn't open her mouth, was, no, you're not. I know who I am. I know who I am. And she has maintained that all of her life, because that is who she is. So to be able to have a family, and Georgie Stone is another one, to have such a fierce mother, like Mama Bear, kind of on your side and go, "I'm in to bat for you," I just find is the next stage of us all being able to evolve into people being able to accept who they are and not have to feel that shame that our family did feel back then. But we're not back then, we're here now. And so, that's why I'm happy that she did finally get to be herself in her fullness. And that not only that, that's why she has such a soft spot for like a younger version of herself, in a way, in a family that is supportive, and she can support that, that kid in any way possible that she can.
Manika, one of the things that we've noticed around the country anecdotally is there are more and more older people transitioning.
Yes.
And some people transitioning in a residential aged care home. And what we're hearing is lots of stories of families that don't understand, or maybe they've listened to, the transphobic conversations from some of our politicians, and they think that there's a shame in having a family member who might have been their dad, who is now their mum, or who may have been their grandfather, who's now their grandmother. If you've got a message to somebody, to a family in that position, got a message for them about it, what it means to love someone who has realised for the first time in their life, in their 60s, 70s or 80s, that they do have permission to acknowledge something that's been there all their lives?
Perhaps if they could put themselves in that other person's shoes, and what would it feel like if you were rejected? What would you feel like if you were rejected because of who you were? And then you may have some inkling, just a little even, of an inkling of how profoundly sad it is that you would reject someone who you might have previously loved and got on with because of an idea as opposed to a reality. I think my message would be, please just honour people. You know, like that's part of this whole thing going back to when I was a women's libber, but I wasn't. People need liberation. So please, you know, like let us all be able to be who we are. I mean, the idea is that if you've got a mother, and I try to understand that, like what would happen if my mum had suddenly said, well, actually, I'm a guy, you know, but because I of course would accept that because of who I am and how our family was. But for other people that have had no context around that, to me, I'm a reader and I want information and I want to meet with other people. So, you know, like there are support groups for family members, whether that be the mother, father, cousin, brother, sister, whatever, because to this day, I have never met another sister who has had a transgender sibling. That is amazing.
What do you think that means? What does that mean? Why is that significant?
Well, it's significant to me because at the time I was going through it, I would have liked someone else to go, shit, I know what you're saying. You know, like that empathy, you know, that if people can be empathic to other people, then they will accept what the reality is as opposed to an idea or a structure, which can actually change, believe it or not. You know, what you think a mother should be or a father or a son or a daughter can open up into, you know, we're open to change. I think people have a lot of trouble with change.
I wonder whether there might be somebody listening to this podcast who has a family member, a sibling, who is making that transition. What would be your message to them?
I think educate yourself, find support for yourself so that you can work through things and not with the sibling because it's not their responsibility. And if I could be so bold as to say that anyone who transitions, like people transition all the time. People transition because they've lost a limb or they've lost a partner through death or they've lost a partner through divorce. You know, like you don't turn your back on those people. So be there for that person who is transitioning and becoming who they are and celebrate that. If you stand up and go, this is who we are as a family, it actually gives permission to other people because you don't think you're the only family or the only ones that are going through this. And if you're kind and open, then you will find the cohorts in your extended family that will go, oh, well, actually, God, because Sally stood up, I can tell you, I'll share our secret, which is that my daughter is gay as well. One of the things I'd like to say is what you think about me is none of my business. Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't.
And it's really true. It's like, you know, like if I'm going to get caught up by what you think about me, I'm giving you the power, aren't I? And I think as people who are outside the quote norm, like, don't worry. And it's not glib, don't worry, don't worry about it, that might be part of your path. But it is, don't give as much power as I did to what people thought. I sort of carried both. I felt I carried both sides. It was like, what you think about me isn't my business. And the other one was, God, what you think about me is going to destroy me. Both, like there's two options there. And obviously the one about, well, what you think about me is your business, because it's your prejudices, it's your, belief system. And I don't necessarily have to engage in that if it's not for my good.
You've been listening to There's a Rainbow in My Family, a podcast by Celebrate Aging. For more information, check out our webpage, celebrateaging.com/rainbows.